Welcome back, everybody. It is a Friday. You made it through another week. Good morning, Penny.
I love Fridays. I still feel like Fridays are, it's, here comes the weekend.
So we kind of back, what is this, number 18 in the series? And, we're kind of in a Friday mood. And so we thought that maybe we just kind of kick down, we're a little past the halfway point on this new round of 30 plus 30. Looking back, is there something that you've been thinking about? And so we're each going to kind of approach that question. So Penny, what are you thinking about this time around?
Well, it's interesting because I have a lot of notes from Jeff's conversation yesterday, and I was definitely looking at those and thinking about the importance of the work that he's talking about digitally. And I went back, I'm trying to do a digital movie of my poem. Remember, I told you I started working on that because for our third webinar, third in the series, we're really going to talk about digital work. And so I have been trying to make that work. And like there are technical things frustrating me. Like I did a bunch of screenshots and dropped them in a movie and then put them in the trash. But you have to keep them in your movie gallery, or the next time you open your movie, they're all gone. So it's stupid stuff like that. And then I have to redo it and I get mad. And that's exactly what kids experience. But then I went back to do a writing exercise, just try one out. And the Muses Among Us, that book, it's just a sweet, eloquent little book of writing exercises from Kim Stafford, who was a writing project director for Oregon at Lewis and Clark College. And I ran into what I think is just a really interesting exercise. It's called The River and the Drum. And the river has these very simple instructions. You have to write the entire page as a one-sentence story. Okay. No fair cheating with semicolons. Use and when you have to, or dash, or make a list, but keep going.
Wait. No semicolons?
Nope. You write the greatest one-sentence story ever. And the thing that I like about this chapter is it ends with one that Harper's took that he wrote. And so you kind of you can get a good feel for it. And so I sat down in my notebook and filled top to bottom. That is a one sentence. And tried not to make it ramble. And two things that I observed doing that. One, I'm definitely going to do it in class because there are two things that happen. One, you have to persevere. You got to get to the bottom of the page, right? And it seems so much longer than ever. When I sit and just write, I can fill page upon page. But I was like, I gotta have more. I gotta have more. And the other thing was that it really made me think about the way sentences work as I wrote. I used a variety of things. I used dashes and commas and asides. I used parentheses. I used ... at one point, just the kinds of ways that you create. And then I started thinking about, there was a recent thing I read, and I don't know who, that was talking about this essential nature of language is storytelling. So all of us come into school having told a lot of stories. All I was doing was like reliving a moment, telling a story. It was fiction, but I was telling a story. And I was so struck by the fact that no wonder kids struggle with punctuation, because the way we talk is not with exaggerated pauses, with clear boundaries. We just keep going. So at any rate, I want to read you just a little bit of it, all right?
Sure.
And I started with where I was at the time, like it was me, and it quickly became my granddaughter, Maisie. I could feel it happening as I was writing. On a deck littered with cups from a party the night before, she sat watching the slow ripple of Great East Lake as it dribbled in towards shore, and she could feel the same ripples in her gut, a slow nausea from the sweet Moscow mules choked with vodka. Okay, maybe I won't share this one. Or was it the wine? She has a distinct memory of wine, but little else, really. Just music and dancing and people. And wait, there was this person, and I just kept going and going and going. And then down towards the end, I have, she wonders if it was like this for her grandparents when they lived here in the year of the pandemic, when everyone avoided the grocery store. And I was like, oh, I didn't see it going there. She thinks the lake itself and this small house was much the same then too. And when people arrived, they gathered on the deck and told stories late into the evening. And then I did all the way to the music from the kitchen, maybe more Taylor Swift, less Blue Terrors, which her younger brother introduced her to last year. And I went, wait, she didn't have a younger brother. Did I just create something? And maybe the water is less clean, but she takes it out on the hydrofoil paddleboard and skims its surface anyway. So it carries chemicals from the last century. She doesn't feel them. She says at the end, you see, even the lake itself is the same. She can feel it. And what her grandmother wrote about from these chairs, fear, loss, heartache, curiosity, are the same things she's considering on this quiet morning. So maybe, just maybe, her grandmother's spirit is perched here beside her, and they are both seeing the same view somehow. She hopes so.
Wow, that is beautiful.
I had no idea it was going there.
You had me nervous there for a minute because you said this is about my granddaughter, Maisie, but you started off by talking about drinking Moscow mules. So I was a little bit concerned.
I'm imagining her as a 25-year-old or whatever. But here's the thing. So the drum, the second part of the activity is the beating of a drum.
Oh, wait. Before you get to the second part of the activity, I just want to say, like, I love that idea of the perseverance of getting to the bottom of the page. And I love the artfulness and experimentation value that's there. And I don't know, when you were reading this, I don't know, I just had this vision of a classroom where these one sentences are plastered all over the walls for parents to read it back to school. I mean, it'd just be such a way to kind of celebrate writing in a way that's not super overwhelming for a lot of writers, perhaps.
Yeah.
Although it also reminds me of our friend Donna Santman, who once told me that, and she's a middle school teacher, that she had kids write a sentence. They weren't like forever sentences, but she had kids write sentences, and they would rewrite those sentences, that one sentence, they'd rewrite it for weeks and go back to it and go back to it and go back to it. And she would show different ways they could add. I don't know, that, you know, that sometimes teaching kids to write doesn't start at the essay level. Sometimes it starts at the sentence level.
Yeah, it was absolutely challenging to stay in the run-on sentence mode. But then, like, I would do revision. Instead, in purple, I did what I learned by doing that, because I don't want to do anything to it. I want to leave it in its raw form when I use it in class this fall. But I think there's something about, if you're going to do quick writes for, you know, about 2 weeks or so, then let's try this one. It's going to take us longer. We're going to stay with it. Because I noticed in my own work, I'd write for a while. You don't have to keep writing. I'd stop and I'd think for a minute. And it was a little different than just quick writing. But then the second half is called the drum. And in the drum, you have to fill the page. You have to tell a story, but no sentence can be longer than 4 words. And every sentence has to have a subject and a verb. So you're creating a drum beat kind of feel, right? And he has it in his, he has an example in that book as well. And so I put it down that after finishing the first one, I didn't have the energy to do the second one. I think it's a great follow-up, but not on the same day. And so tomorrow, that's going to be my task, is to write the drum sentence that all go together.
And is there a sample in the book?
Yeah, there is, of the drum as well. And I just think that, you know, what I love about reading what other writers do with students, right, is that you get this insight into that, something I would never have thought to do, but it gives me just a little glimpse of, hey, I might want to try this, because he has good examples in here.
I was going to ask you, you know, I just asked you the question, is there an example in the book, right? Why did I ask that question?
Because you want to hear it before you try it. Right.
I mean, this is a huge lesson. I mean, if you're going to write something that's unfamiliar to you,
absolutely.
I want to see how somebody else does it. Exactly. And think about the kids that are in our room. Everything we ask them to write is unfamiliar to them because they're not writing. Right. So can I stand next to somebody who's doing it?
That's so smart. You're
and
right.
I've written forever, and you've written forever. But even at this stage of our careers, I want to see some, I want to try that, but can I read his first, please?
Yeah. I'm just going to give you a glimpse of it, right? So no sentence longer than 4 words, subject verbs. Writing takes time. Life takes time. There's your problem. Can they happen together? They can. Rivers have the key. Rivers pass rocks. There is a way. And then he goes farther on. Do you believe? Do you want this? Others haunt arenas. Your writing inhabits threads. There are ways. Believe, write, be patient, be bold. It will come together, right? You can just hear it. It's such a different feel.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that.
Yeah. So now you got to try it too.
Well, it reminds me of a book, and I shouldn't say this now because I don't have it with me. I don't know where it is, but there is actually, this is way much more of a gimmick. But have you ever seen that book? The guy wrote an entire book without using the letter E.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I've got to find that maybe for a future talk, but that's real kind of gimmicky. This is, I think, really, really a value. I think I'd love to get in and try that.
Well, and I love we want to teach both. Like, remember, I immediately thought of Leonard Pitts, and I thought, I want him to do this, and then I want to give him that cruel as it is, we still go on, because he has that elegant paragraph-long sentence that is a run-on to make the point of the accumulation of the Haiti earthquakes. So I don't know.
The push, I'm thinking off the top of my head here because we did not plan this, and I'm hearing this for the first time. But the pushback you're going to get from some teachers is, wait a minute, I'm already having trouble getting kids with run-on sentences. I'm already having kids who don't know how to paragraph. Why would I have them do this? What would your response be to that?
Well, I'm certain of 2 things. One is that when you read that, you're going to get tired out. And I want my students at a feeling level to know the problem with run-on sentences, not as a corrected thing. So it does that for you. You read it. I mean, especially if I have to read it to someone, I'm like, I can't take a breath. So I believe it's valuable, because how do you learn to recognize it? You learn by knowing what it is.
Yeah.
Devil's advocate there. You knew that answer. I can see it. You could have answered your own question. Okay. So Kelly, what are you thinking about?
It's not as dramatic as your example, but I was looking back at the conversations over this week. And the thing that has been sticking up here for the last couple of days is our conversation a few days ago about writing groups. And I've done writing groups, you've done writing groups, but in all honesty, the last, 3 or 4 years of my teaching, I didn't have formal writing groups. My kids did all the things that are done in writing groups, but a writing group has an extra value to it because the kids are in the same group with the same writers over the course of the year. And it really got me into the mind of thinking, why did I leave that? And that got me into the mind of thinking, every teacher who's been in a classroom for a significant amount of time comes back to an idea that you used to do, and you thought, why aren't I doing that anymore? Why did I drop that? And I'm thinking around, why did I drop that? I think part of the answer is the last few years of teaching have gotten so hard. This is even before the pandemic, right? That I sit with a grade alike team. We plan our 9th grade year, our 12th grade year. We're going to do laps around narrative. We're going to do laps around argument. We're going to do and now I've got to fit this in and this in. And somehow the idea of an actual group that meets every Thursday from about the 5th or 6th week on, because I always spend the first few weeks trying to build community and sharing and trying to get over that. But somehow that ran away from me. And I want to say that the conversation we had earlier this week made me think, and I'm not going back in the classroom in September, but I'm going to be working with teachers who are, that if I were going back in the classroom in September, I got to put that back up at the top and make the other things fit around that.
Ooh, I love that you said that, because that's why we give up everything. And when you said that other things got in the way, and they did the things they did in writing groups, but no longer in that group. And I immediately went, so does it matter that you lost them? And I thought of what my students have shown me about the importance of writing groups is they were always on Thursdays and they were every single week.
Right.
In my college class, right? And in my high school room, it was usually, but I have them every other day, so it wasn't the same day every week, but they were usually 15, 20 minutes, but kids prepared for them.
Yes.
You don't know how many times a kid would
Yes.
say, okay, I was thinking about you guys when I was writing this in my notebook, and I want you just to hear it. And if you don't know it's happening, it's like if writing workshop is not every day, kids stop writing at home because they're not bringing it in and working on it.
Right. And in my high school classroom for years, we would do it every Thursday. The rule was you had to bring something to share. It did not have to be a full-blown essay.
Absolutely.
It could be a passage. In fact, what was interesting is that you'd have like this spread between the kid who's writing his own novel and tried to bring 9 pages, and you had to pull aside and say, you know what, maybe just pick 1 page to share. On the other end of that spectrum is the kid, I'm not sharing, I can't write. I'm not the kid who writes this much and says I'm done. But I can still remember when it was Thursday, because I taught, with a lot of kids who did not have a lot of means at home. And so Thursday morning, they had emailed me and they would come into my classroom and print, because you'd have to have copies for everybody in your room. So the kids would come in and print 5 copies so that they could come into the writing group, and everybody, let's look at Kelly's piece now. Kelly, what is it that you would like the group to comment on? Not just hand them out and say, help me, but hey, everybody, here's what I'm working on. Would you look at X? And I just knew it was Thursday because I had this stream of kids coming in to print. I actually went to my administration and said, I need a bigger budget for ink because my kids are coming in here. There was something about that day. You knew it was writing day. You knew that and the thing is, when they're not in the groups month after month after month, you lose. I don't even know how to describe it. Those kids, as I said in an earlier conversation, they brought in food.
Yeah.
They just became so tight knit. It was like a thing within a thing, and I think coming out of the pandemic,
right,
this move to reconnect small groups of kids together as they try to figure out how to go back into school, I just think it's something that I want teachers to think about.
More important than ever. And I also thought that, when you said there's the kid who's only written a few sentences, but if he's moving around the room and going to different kids all the time, sometimes he doesn't move beyond that. But I've had kids give kids standing ovations during writing group because the kid finally wrote a whole bunch, or the kid got his, he just got his voice and nailed it. But I was thinking about when you said, what did you get that's got past you? And I immediately thought of how Tom Romano, in a class I took from him one year at UNH, taught us about the 1-pager. And every single class period, his Miami University students would come in with a 1-pager. And I did this with my seniors one year, one semester. Every writing group, they brought a 1-pager, and the 1-pager was a comment on life essay. So you could only be 1 page, but I had kids like, today in the lunchroom, this is what's wrong, like that kind of stuff. It was fresh. It was new. No one had to perseverate over developing it, but there was just such a freedom there. And I remember when I was in your room and you were they had folders they'd written 1-page drafts, and they'd done a whole bunch of them, but they chose one to work on. That's exactly the way I had used the 1-pagers. After they'd collected them all, choose one that's going to go in your portfolio. And they went back to work on that one. And for some of them, it didn't change because it was the freshness of it, kind of like a blog post now.
Well, think about it, the difference when a kid walks in a room and it's like, okay, now the teacher's going to talk about Hamlet for 40 minutes versus walking into a room and going, hey, Penny, what'd you write? I can't wait to read it. And Susie and Johnny, what'd you guys write today? And I can't wait to read it. There's just something that's sort of bonding about that. Of course.
And authentic. You want to, Like, how many times have I said to you, Kelly, oh my God, I was working on this thing in my notebook this morning. Let me tell you about it. Because I know you're an audience for it. And I think, yeah, you're like, I wish I could escape.
I almost said too many, but I didn't.
It's true. But I think that our students absolutely need more connections like that when they come back. They haven't had it. But there's also this sense of it becomes theirs. We're not in it. And when I was online with my students this fall, I was always like hovering there. Even if I turned my camera off, I was still in the room. And I'm going to be so looking forward to having groups of kids that I'm just letting them go. Writing groups.
Well, and that raises another issue too, is like sometimes like in the one pager kind of mode, sometimes I, as the teacher, have written one and I would drop into it. I would ask them, hey, next week, can I just sit in? And I would share my piece of writing with them. But the other value, of course, is even if I'm the kid who writes this much, if I'm sitting in your group and I'm reading your paper and I'm seeing the moves that you made and the moves that he made, I think oh, I could write kind of that idea. I can write that approach, right? I could try, 4-word sentences. I don't know. There's something about seeing the peers. And of course, that gets into the whole idea that when you set them up, you have to set up the idea that this is a nurturing environment. There's no criticism. There's no, that we want to build a community of writers. And I think way more than even doing laps through narrative or doing laps through argument or literary analysis, I think even way more than that, this idea of putting kids in groups and having them meet week after week after week actually internalizes in them, hey, I am a writer. I can write.
And there's not
more than anything else I've ever done in my classroom. And so I don't know. I'm just thinking about once in a while, I don't read my own books, but once in a while I'll look for something in a book and that's in this book. And I'll go and I'll see why did I stop doing that? That is so good. And I when we had that discussion on writing groups this week, that's the one that really stuck with me.
Wow, I guess, I got to give you a glimpse of one kid. It was writing group day, Isaac, who was, he was always full of it. Like one time we asked him to share his writing and he sang it to us. He was that kid, right? So I'm going around and collecting them all because I didn't collect them every week in writing group, but it was early in the semester and I wanted to see what they were writing. And I remember he hands it to me and he goes, can I do this over? And I said, why? And he goes, because now that I've heard what everybody else is writing, I want to write something that's more important than this.
Wow.
See, that's the thing that we can't teach, that the peers teach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoy these days where we just kind of riff because
So do I.
God, the whole idea of the river and the drum, that's beautiful. And so that's not to say, however, that we don't have a couple of mystery guests lined up for next week. We do. But until then, we hope all of you have a very nice weekend as the weather is turning beautiful. I hope that you get out and have a safe and sane weekend, and we can't wait till we come back and see you next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.